All right. Good.
Elvis. 15 years ago. Yeah. Only investment.
All right, we are live on Zoom and it appears that the YouTube is streaming as well.
Okay, we will call the meeting to order. First, we're going to have roll call. Commission Member Hennis, I'm here. Member Kramer.
Here.
Commission Member Lucas.
Here.
Commission Member Whitmore.
Here.
Commission Member Watkins is absent. In addition to citizens attending the meeting in person, citizens have several options to view or participate in the Zoom meeting webinar as described below. We will do our best to take citizen comment remotely. There are two options for citizens to offer comment. One, to join the Rockbridge County Planning Commission Zoom webinar. The link is available on the county website to copy into the address line on your browser. Two, to join by telephone. You may dial into one of the numbers listed on the county website. Webinar ID and password are there for your convenience. Citizens wishing to simply view the meeting live or after the fact can do so on the Rockbridge County Planning Commission YouTube channel, also available on the county website. If you wish to make a citizen comment as a Zoom meeting participant who use the raise your hand feature, you can press the raise hand button on the bottom of your Zoom window or press *9 if you're calling in by telephone. This time we will proceed with the meeting and we will begin with citizens' comments. Anyone who is here to speak on anything other than what we have on the agenda this evening.
No one signed up. We have any public who'd like to speak? Now's perfect. Let me go to the attendees. If there's anyone online that would like to make a citizen comment, please utilize the raise the hand button. Not seeing any, I'll turn the floor back to the chair.
Okay, next we will review the minutes. Did everybody get a chance to review those? It says staff will review. Did you have something to add to that?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so you all had a chance to look at that. So we need a motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve as submitted.
Okay, we have a motion to approve.
Second.
In a second, all in favor? Aye. And the motion passes. Well, now we are ready for board reports, which Mr. Sladen.
Yes, at the September 26, 2022 meeting, the Board of Supervisors approved the Marlbrook Baptist Church doing business as Shenandoah Christian Academy as submitted or as recommended by the Planning Commission, excuse me. Same was true for the Conger Campgrounds. That's of course the Fancy Hill Natural Bridge KOA that was approved as recommended. And then third action of the evening involving Office of Community Development is Balcony Downs special event venue, and that was approved as submitted. Also happy to announce last night the regular board meeting on October 10th was postponed because of Columbus Day to October 11th, and the only board action pertaining to the Planning Commission or Office of Community Development is they reappointed Mr. Whitmore for another term, so we appreciate his willingness to serve.
We do appreciate that. Thank you. So next on our agenda is Swami Karnam, 2215 North Lee Highway, Lexington, Virginia, 24450. We'll have a public hearing for his application on the special exception permit, commercial greenhouse in the agricultural and transition AT zoning district. We'll have the presentation by staff and the applicant at this time.
Yes, Mr. Cardam is here representing the project. I have a very brief PowerPoint presentation. Bear with me here. So my mouse is literally not working. Let me do this. Sorry about that. Swami Karman, DBA is Junga Kai LLC, and I apologize, I'm probably butchering that pronunciation. This is a special exception in the agricultural transitional zone for commercial greenhouses. The property is under consideration, is owned by Swami Karnam, and its tax map number identified as 2215 North Lee Highway. And the tax maps we're dealing with this evening are two tax maps. The first one is 62-4-1L that consists of 2.75 acres, which is the larger parcel. And then 62-4-1H, which is 2 acres associated with the house. Again, the house address, the existing dwelling on the property is identified as 2215 North Lee Highway. The property is located in the agricultural transitional district. Per section 603B-2-2, of the regulations, agricultural is a permitted use in the agricultural transitional zone. However, per section 603B-03.02, commercial greenhouses are a use by special exception in the agricultural and transitional zoning district. Again, the applicant is Swami Carmen. In addition to the commercial greenhouses, additional uses on the property include growing tea, rice, and other supplemental crops, construction of a pond, and accessory structure used as a tasting room for beverage. The commercial plant greenhouse is the only item under special exception permit. I did feel it was beneficial for Swami to include the additional details of the project, just to include, the overall project. But again, to be clear, the only thing that's under special exception this evening is the commercial greenhouse. As far as conditions that could be utilized, number one, substantial compliance for the location of the greenhouse as shown on the concept plan titled Schematic Plan for Juna Kai LLC greenhouses dated September 21st, 2022, and then revised October 5th, 2022. Contingent upon Rockbridge County Building Department and Virginia Department of Transportation VDOT approvals. You may notice that these conditions have been modified since the information that's in the Planning Commission package. After additional consideration, Office of Community Development staff felt like suggesting taking out the ABC and Health Department approvals. Revised number 2 would state approval contingent upon county building department and the Virginia Department of Transportation approvals. The reason is that the special exception permit only pertains to the commercial greenhouses, not the growing of crops outdoors, not the pond, not the accessory building, nor the ABC portion of the overall project. These items would fall under the ag use, including the potential tasting room that's be utilized as the accessory structure that could be utilized as a potential tasting room for sake. I have had a brief conversation with a ABC control officer, and it's not uncommon. He is familiar with other sake operations in Virginia. And it depends on if it's a fermentation process, it's actually considered a farm winery and would fall under agricultural use as a farm winery. If there's a distilling process, obviously that's a limited distillery, but it's actually more common for it to be fermented and permitted as a farm winery. The same, I was actually surprised in chatting with him, the same is true with the cidery down in the Fancy Hill area. That's actually permitted as a farm winery. And I was incorrectly assuming it'd be a limited brewery, such as another one in the area of Great Valley. With that, I'd like to turn the floor over to Swami. He does have a PowerPoint presentation. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen real quick, go back to the normal view and pull his presentation up. All right, turn the floor over. And it's just left and right here to switch the slides.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. and thanks for allowing me to present here. My agenda and a little bit of the introduction. My name is Swami Kernam, and I been in Virginia 18 years, mostly Northern Virginia. And I moved here about 4 months ago. Worked as a software engineer, and during the pandemic, we lost our real estate. They told us to move out of the building and just work from home almost forever. So I moved on here, and I wanted to get back to what my family used to do, was farming. And 2 of the crops that I wanted to do was rice and tea. And this is because I enjoyed hiking, and I've been hiking in Peru and Nepal, and I actually fell in love with the way they terrace the farms, and I wanted to transform a hill in this area into something similar that people can visit and enjoy. Also, when I moved to the U.S., I've been a U.S. citizen. I've been here 31 years. I've been doing some wine tasting, and I've been very fond of it. I wanted to do something along those lines of introducing some beverages. On my hikes in Nepal, there were a lot of tea houses, and I wanted to do something that was not very common, like wineries and cideries are more common, and I have no knowledge about the business, and it would be hard for me to get into it. I figured something niche like tea and rice wine would give me a better chance for the market. And so I did some research, a little bit about tea. Tea plants are like olives in the sense that they're long living. Apparently, there's one plant that's 3,200 years old, and it's still producing tea. And so that's a picture of one of the 3,200-year-old tea. And on the left is a picture of one of the tea plants that I planted on my property. I have 10 plants as an experiment, and at the property under consideration. And I also do have another property in Rockbridge, and I planted 100 plants there, and I haven't done any maintenance, and 50 of them have survived. And so I think it's going to do very well. The only thing is, I'm getting seeds from Nepal, about 35,000 seeds next month, and to give the plants a better chance of survival, I'm getting a greenhouse or 2 greenhouses, and that's the reason for the special exception request. They grow better at 70 degrees, and so I was going to use the greenhouse until they're up about 6 months to a year, and then transplant them, and they're strong enough. But once they're strong, they can survive for thousands of years if you take care of it. The next one was rice, which I want to use for rice wine and beer, sake. Rice grows, I guess, pretty much where it's hot and humid. I planted an experimental crop very late in the season. There's a picture of it behind my house. I bought the house in June, and I planted it in August. So I'm not going to get a crop this year, but it grows. So hopefully I'll be able to do another experiment next year and brew some wine. I did plant 100 lavender seeds, and they're doing pretty well, and hopefully they'll survive. And 9 rose plants, and 1 each of hibiscus and jasmine, and a few fruit trees, fruit plants. So these are I'm going to use as to mix into the tea to make some tea blends. Currently, I am importing tea from India, which pre-blended, and the tea is the crops are gonna take about 3 to 5 years before I can start producing. But I do plan to sell beforehand from the imports that I'm getting, and I do have samples of the blends. And hoping to learn from it by growing the ingredients. Some of them, like hibiscus and jasmine, I'm also going to grow in the greenhouses because the 2 that I had planted when we got the first frost this Saturday, I think I've mostly lost it. Hopefully it survives, but the greenhouses will definitely help. And, so the greenhouses, I'm They're 33 feet by 131. There are two of them. Yeah, they're plastic film covered or metal tubes, and they're two different sizes. One is 3.5 meters high. I think that's just under 12 feet, and the other is 4.2 meters. That's just under 15 feet, like 14 feet or so. The shorter one, I plan to put a wood heater on it, and that's the one I'm going to use for the tea plants. And the larger one is an experimental one. I want to see if I can grow bananas in it, and the hibiscus. See if it can grow a little bit taller. The pond is basically for the rice. So the rice it needs a lot of water. It has to be in water all the time, and so I plan to collect the water from the top of the tasting room, the roofs of the tasting rooms, and the roofs of the greenhouses, and the roof of my house. And use that to pump it back to the rice fields. And, so the tasting rooms are steel buildings. It's 2 floors. The main floor is 2,500 square feet roughly, and the mezzanine is 1,500 square feet. And the mezzanine is where the tasting room and the store is going to be, and it has a balcony where you can look over under to the production area, and I'm hoping to install some steel I guess drums or something for brewing and tea roasting equipment. I'm still learning, so it's all an experimental process. So thank you for hearing me out, and I look forward to your questions, and hope you approve. Grant me the exception. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have questions, you guys, before he sits down?
I mean, just a couple things on the, know he's putting a pond in. And I know between the pond area and the house, there's a septic field, so you might want to make sure you're clearing that pretty good. You can see that as you ride up the road. So that's something you definitely want to watch. That's just a word of advice, that's all.
Oh, I appreciate it.
That's it on that. So thank you.
Anything else?
That's it.
Nope. You all good? Okay, thank you. If we think of anything, we'll let you know.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. So at this time, we're going to open the public hearing.
There's no one signed up to speak. At this time, let me stop sharing my screen. If anyone online would like to make a public comment pertaining to the commercial greenhouses, now the appropriate time to use the raise hand button. Not seeing any, I will turn the floor back over to the chair.
Okay. So we will close the public comment period and we will bring it back to the board for any discussion or questions. Yes, I have one question about, so when they do the tasting room and all that, because it's ag transition, it doesn't come back. We don't have to approve that. That's just a use.
Yes. So yes, to be clear, the only thing that's under a special exception and I'd like to sometime explore zoning text amendment or see the palatability of exploring a zoning text amendment to make commercial greenhouses a permitted use.
I was going to say, it
the
really seems
agricultural
like
zoning.
that
It's-
fits in that.
I struggled with it, when we first discussed this. But yes, to answer your question directly, the growing of the tea, the growing of the rice, all outdoor activities, even the tasting room,
That
that
surprised me. If the tasting room doesn't have to come before us, why does the commercial greenhouse have to
yeah,
come
and
before
that's
us?
it. And,
doesn't
and
make
you
any
may
sense.
recall, I mean, there's certainly other limited breweries and farm wineries that have come through that have come to Rockbridge County, I should say, be established, and they're not required to come to the planning commission because it's a permitted use. It's not a use by special exception.
So is the operation that's going on here going to be fermenting or distilling?
I'm not sure. fermenting. So
Okay.
with a conversation with Mr. Kraft, a very brief conversation with a gentleman named John Kraft. I think he's a senior ABC specialist or something. I can't remember his actual title, but again, he was familiar with sake operations in Virginia. And he said the ones he is familiar with, were fermenting process, and that would be the farm winery. It would actually come under the farm winery.
So if they decided they wanted to do distilling, is that something that also is a permitted use or something that has to come back?
It is a permitted use. So per the
Doesn't
code
matter.
of Virginia, limited distilleries, limited breweries, and a lot of people refer to them as farm breweries, but per the code, they're called limited breweries. And of course, farm wineries are all, if they're in an if they're in an agricultural zoning district, we're required to treat them as an agricultural use. And so regardless if there's different
Doesn't
levels.
really matter.
Yeah,
Okay.
the fermenting versus the distillery, it would be considered a agricultural operation with limits of production, I should say.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
Yes,
Only thing I've got is offsets on the greenhouse off property line.
yes, and so there'll be considered accessory structures. So it's 65-foot fronts, and then 20-foot sides and 20-foot rear. So I have talked to Swami about, and he's in the process of doing a deed of merger. And you may recall the plan that we're working on was dated September 21st, but revised October 5th. And one of the revision, I should say, was the relocation of the greenhouse because of some topography challenges. And Mr. Carmen had met with a excavator on site, and they had suggested, rather than perpendicular to Route 11, turning it parallel to Route 11. But that still would require, the original draft had the greenhouse, one of the greenhouses actually straddling the property line. This one doesn't, but it's still a setback issue. So he'll have to do a deed of merger.
I just want to make sure we're good, especially on the backside too.
Absolutely.
That's another
Yes.
property owner.
So does the change from parallel to perpendicular change the grading and how much?
It does. Well, yeah, if I recall correctly, it's a slight grade from Route 11 going, essentially going west. And so the original plan was to have it like this, obviously. And now parallel to Route 11, it's less grading. I think it's safe to say, yes, sir.
Do we even have to approve a site plan, considering if they meet their setbacks and, dissolve the interior property line? I mean, does that even have to be a part of this?
We usually do that. And I did make a notion or made a change, substantial compliance for the location of the greenhouses as shown on the concept plan. And so I think it is, I mean, if y'all are concerned with the number of greenhouses or the placement of greenhouses, it would be worthwhile to go ahead and put that in there.
Just gives them latitude if they, run across a rock ledge when they want to, put one parallel or perpendicular. If they want to change things up, it gives them some latitude, I would think.
Me, as long as they meet the setbacks.
Yeah.
I don't care where they put them,
Care
as
where
long
they
as they
put
meet the setback.
And not concerned on the numbers of greenhouses either.
No.
Okay.
As long as they meet the setbacks.
Yeah.
Next.
So is that a
So basically, I think we
strike?
can take that out, the first condition, right? Because
Yep.
we're not concerned about that.
Right. And we're not approving the steel building tasting
No.
room.
That doesn't have anything to do with it.
That's
The only
correct.
thing we're doing is allowing place greenhouses on the property.
Yeah.
In agricultural.
And AG
Yeah.
special exception.
Oh, surprise, surprise. Okay, great. All right, we're ready. Who wants to make the call?
Go ahead, Mr. David.
All right. I make a motion to recommend that the special exception permit for development and operation of commercial greenhouses in the AT district per LDR section 603B.03-2 at 2215 North Lee Highway, Lexington, in the Walkers Creek Magisterial District be approved with the following conditions. Number one, approval contingent upon County Building Department and Virginia Department of Transportation approvals.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. And all in favor? Aye. That passes. Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Yes. And so this
Like a
is
good
advisory
plan.
board. We've chatted about the board of supervisors towards the end of the month. Yes. So they're making a recommendation to approve to the board. Perfect.
Good luck to you. Thank
Yep.
you.
Thank you.
And welcome to
Good luck.
Rockbridge. You're pretty much a newcomer if you've only been here 4 months, right? Okay. So next on the agenda is discussion on electronic meeting policy update.
Yes, and I'm going to continue to plagiarize and work off Ms. Huffman's work on there. So we're essentially the next two items are dealing with two different things with similar circumstances, if you will. The first is electronic meeting policy. Bear with me here. And so the way I've explained it to the commission members and others, electronic meeting policy is for essentially for the benefit of the commission members. This is the one where this was pre-COVID. We adopted this, had nothing to do with COVID, but it requires a majority physically present, a majority of the quorum, a quorum physically present. And then if it was a 5-person board or 5 people present at the meeting, 2 of them could participate remotely under certain circumstances. So we originally, I'll just go ahead and read the summary of information. By resolution adopted by the Planning Commission on October 14th, 2020, the commission established a policy for electronic participation in meetings pursuant Virginia Code 2-2-2-3708. Period 2. The policy allows for commission members to remotely participate in meetings when a medical condition prevents them from attending in person, or when a personal matter prevents them from attending in person for up to 2 meetings per calendar year. For the last several years, due to the ongoing emergency created by COVID-19, the continuity of government ordinance has been in place, rendering the need for this policy being electronic meeting policy unnecessary. However, with the policy will provide some latitude for remote participation when the continuity of government expires or is terminated. The expiration date was, I should say, October 5th, 2022. So that policy has expired. The continuity of government ordinance has expired on October 5th. In the meantime, with some amendments to state and enabling legislation were made in the 2021 legislative session, which included addition of allowing electronic participation due to a medical condition of a family member of the commission member. Electronic participation was also authorized during a declared state of emergency to provide for the continuity of government operations of a public body or the discharge of its lawful purposes, duties, and responsibilities, rather than a previous authorization only to address the matters pertaining to the emergency. Further amendments were approved in 2022 legislative session with effective date of September 1st, 2022. However, local governing bodies, Planning Commission, and Board of Zoning Appeals were excluded from the most recent changes allowing all virtual meetings. Lastly, following the condition was added for allowance of remote participation in a meeting, the commission member's principal residence is more than 60 miles from the meeting location identified in the required notice for such meeting. The proposed resolution that was included in your package with the green showing the proposed changes to incorporate the applicable changes to the county's policy is attached for the commission's consideration. The written policy relates to remote participation by a member of the public body only. Nothing in the policy precludes the ability to allow public participation remotely. And the recommendation, if acceptable to the commission, take action to adopt the proposed resolution as presented or revised by the commission. And so again, in the actual planning commission package, you have the original policy that was adopted October 14th, 2020 with the proposed amendments in green. It should be green on y'all's as well.
I have one question, and just reading over this, it has to do with this, that we have to, with specificity, talk about what our personal matter is, the reason that we can't attend,
Yes.
and
if
that's
you-
public.
Yes, it's mandated by state code, the Freedom of Information Act. If you're unable to attend, you have to state the reason. If you're unable to attend and want to participate electronically.
Right.
Sorry.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense.
So this does require a motion to approve the resolution with the submitted changes.
Yeah, I mean, I read through these. I don't see any other issues. Do you guys see anything that needs clarification? I mean, it looks good to me. You've been doing it.
Done it fast. I'll make a motion. We approve or adopt following electronic participation policy for meetings as written. You don't need me to read it all, do you?
No, no,
As
as presented.
As presented
Yes, sir.
in our package.
Okay, we have a motion. You have a second?
Second.
Second here. All in favor?
Aye.
And it passes. The recommendation.
Now, I would have been more glad to read it, but
Yeah, and see how fast you can read one.
No, the whole idea of having a resolution is so move approval of the resolution, so you don't have to
Mhm.
say all that.
So we are on to item number 7, which is discussion of the expiration of the continuity of government ordinance.
Yes, and sort of covered that in last agenda meeting, or last agenda item discussion, electronic meeting policy. We just wanted to ensure that y'all knew, obviously, the difference between electronic meeting policy update and the continuity government ordinance. So as stated previously, the continuity government ordinance expired on October 5th, 2022. So we are no longer under that ordinance. But that pertained to both public participation and planning commission participation. So obviously two of y'all were still under electronic meeting policy, but what the Board of Supervisors has done with the citizen comments is they're still allowing Zoom comments. They're still allowing, obviously, citizens coming to the meeting as always and commenting that way. But the fourth item, if you will, is going to be written comments, and they can be dropped off in the mail. They can be mailed to us or emailed under the PC citizen comments. And so talk briefly with some of y'all about the pros and cons of reading those written comments, certainly supportive of allowing for public participation via Zoom and of course, as always, public participation for people coming in. But I think essentially at this time, I think it's staff's recommendation that we follow the Board of Supervisors lead and still allow for the written comments via mail and email.
And we just confirmed that those are not going to be read, though, at our meeting.
Well, see, the board has read them, has directed, we're still going to read them at the board level. And you know, I think it's our suggestion that we would follow the board's lead, obviously. But if the planning commission, the members of the planning commission overwhelmingly do not want to read the comments that come in via mail or email, that's a decision that we could make as an independent commission, essentially.
Right, because they are going to be read at the board level.
They are going to
Anyway.
be read at the board level, yes.
I think we can strike a reading all because I know you've had
I mean, we might get
pile of them
50 of them,
sometimes to read, and
which
as
we've
long
all
as-
read because they've come to us in email or we've gotten them. So to stand here and read them, the only thing I thought is then it's read into the public record, but it's going to be read into the public record at the Board of Supervisors, right?
If the comments are addressed to the Board of Supervisors, yes. And
Which I
now
would- I
that
think
would,
most of the time they come to us and the Board of Supervisors is,
yes, it's not uncommon. So that's not to say, obviously, even before COVID, y'all received written comments, and that's not discouraging citizens from reaching out to y'all as individuals, as planning
Right.
commission as a whole, to give you written comments. And I think it would be appropriate to identify, to state on the record that we've received these written comments from
agreed.
X, Y, and Z, if you will, but
I just think
what Robert's-
reading, I mean, that's just a lot to
That-
read. I
that
mean,
can
I've
turn
seen that and
into a
I've
lot.
watched the city when they've read through 50 or 100, and everybody takes a turn read. It takes a lot of time and I don't think I don't see the benefit
As long
to
as
it
we
really.
receive them in the emails, in an email from the office or from the concerned citizen or citizen, And as long as there's a copy of them, I'd say you can print a copy of them. So we've got them in front of us here. If somebody wants to look at them, wants to
Yes.
read, wants to say something
You
or.
said they're available for by FOIA, if
Absolutely,
somebody asks
yes.
for them, but
And
I
we
just, I
do-
don't see the benefit. They're really for us to hear, not necessarily for the rest of the public to.
And we do encourage it because I mean, 3 minutes is obviously a very small amount of time, depending on how many questions, comments people have, how many points to address. So we always do encourage the written comments to y'all to get the entire views out there, but then essentially summarize those comments at the meeting if they choose to do so.
Well, and I do think having the Zoom, I mean, I feel like more people have been participating, which I encourage that. So I mean, I feel like that's good. And if we can keep taking written comments and I just don't think we need to be reading them.
And to be clear, they have the written comments go directly to y'all, but also, and sometimes they go to y'all and not staff. So that's another
Mhm.
potential problematic area that when we're unaware of them. But with that being said, we'll be cognitive of it. And I do think it's a good idea to say, we've received these written comments from Mr.
Great.
Smith or Ms.
Mhm.
Smith, whoever.
Following people sent emails or letters to the board and
Yes.
Well, the
list them
thing
out.
we need to just remember as members, if we get a comment from the citizen and it's only addressed to us, we need to share it with Chris so he can share it with everybody
Right,
appropriately. That needs to
agreed.
be shared. with.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sure.
And that's keeping it, getting their opinion out to everyone.
Mhm.
Do you see any issues with any of that?
I don't.
Okay.
In
All right.
fact, that's exactly what I would suggest doing.
Thank you. Great.
All right. So yeah, no, we will follow up accordingly for sure.
Okay.
Appreciate that.
All right. And the last thing is the comprehensive plan update discussion. And you have a presentation for us?
Already done it? You've updated it?
Yes,
She took care
Vivica
of
has
it. She
done
handled
the
it
comp
for us.
plan. We're here to present
like,
the
"We're here to
final
go."
draft of the comp plan to y'all. We're holding a public hearing. All right, bear with me here. Vivica has done some research on how other localities she shared with y'all via email, some of that research, but we thought it'd be beneficial to essentially keep the train moving on this and have essentially a presentation for y'all's consideration on what research we've done. And when I say we, I mean Vivica. No further ado.
I got that. What's this we?
Good saying that sometimes.
Okay, so as we just discussed kind of in the email, we have a pretty big task ahead of us to update the comprehensive plan. So first, just to talk about what the purpose of the comprehensive plan. So why do we really need it? It gives kind of an overarching long-term guide of how the community will grow and develop in the future. And it's something that'll last for a long period of time and ensure that there's continuity. It creates a set of guidelines that evolve and change over time, which allows it to adapt to the current and future needs of the area. It acts as a foundation upon which individual community development decisions are made. So this is kind of the umbrella, and then as certain developments or certain projects are brought up, it allows us to have a foundation to base those decisions on. And then, as I said, it allows for continuity through all land use decisions, and it encourages economic development while also protecting the current resources that are available within the community. So currently, we have 9 areas in the comp plan. Those include history, which covers the pre-settlement through the 21st century of the county. And it also includes the sites of historic and significant value. Natural environment includes things like topography, geography, soil, agricultural, water, and natural resources. Population talks about the past and current population trends and projections of future change. The government chapter talks about the structure of not only Rockbridge County, but also the cities of Lexington and Buena Vista, as well as the towns of Glasgow and Goshen. Economy talks about the education, employment, which also includes data on occupation and community patterns, wages and income, tourism and recreation. The housing chapter talks about housing supply levels, statistics on household characteristics, and housing initiatives that are current and future. Transportation talks about the network and management needs assessments and current recommendations for projects. And then the available utilities to citizens in the area, including power, gas, waste management, and parks and recreation facilities. And then the final chapter is land use, which talks about land ownership statistics, and then also the zoning and land use of each zoning district. So that's what's in our comp plan currently. So in order to gather ideas to update the plan, we want to be able to develop a vision for the future of the county. And we'll do that using collaboration between members of the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors, as well as the Office of Community Development. We will recruit input from county citizens and community leaders via public meetings and public hearings. We'll also receive assistance, which we've kind of talked about, from the Central Shenandoah Planning District Commission, or CSPDC. And then we'll use objective analysis of the comprehensive plans of surrounding localities, particularly those with similar populations. So the comp plans that I sent out to you guys are really to help with that last point. So what we're looking for in other localities comp plans, we're not really aiming to copy other places comp plans, but we're kind of comparing and contrasting different pieces and parts of it, and it'll allow us to bring it all together to create something that's most relevant to Rockbridge County. So we're looking at the goals and objectives and strategies that may be adapted and incorporated for Rockbridge County. We're seeing what kind of graphics, charts, and maps are within the plans that better convey or enrich the information included. We've kind of seen a trend towards, if you can cut out words and use a graphic or chart to convey that information, it's probably better. The layout and formatting options, which help the document to be easily used and referenced, because this is a continuously evolving document. It's not something that we complete and put up on the shelf for 5 years and say, hey, we're done. We want to be constantly referencing this, so the easier it is to use, the better. The ability of the comprehensive plan to use the current growth trends to address the future needs of the community. That's kind of the key, is that we don't know what's going to happen in the future, but we're able to use the information that we have now to predict it, and that'll help us address the future needs of the county. We're looking at the difference between an initially adopted comprehensive plan and a 5-year update. So this, what we're working on right now is our 5-year update. This plan was initially adopted in 2016. So the plans that I sent you guys, 3 of them were initially adopted plans, but 1 of them was an update. So that's something to keep in mind. And then we are looking at the page count of the comp plans. We are seeing a trend towards more concise and less more. So looking specifically at some of the counties, these are the ones that you guys have hopefully taken a look at. So Amherst County, they adopted their original comp plan in 2007, and then they have updated it in 2013 and 2017. The updates are applied to the direct, the original, so they're not separate, they're incorporated. It's 198 pages. It identifies the components that will contribute to a successful comp plan, which stresses the need for citizen input and makes sure that the goals fit the needs of the community. So I'm kind of just pointing out the aspects of each plan that would be something to consider incorporating that will help make our comp plan stronger. So it uses a large number of easy to interpret visuals, which reduces the amount of text. Most chapters begin with a 3 to 5 paragraph introduction, followed by the associated goals. Then the current population information and data is given with a short descriptive paragraphs. Each goal is broken down into objectives and then further into strategies. The strategies are very specific and measurable and use SMART goals. So if for anyone who's not familiar, SMART is an acronym that stands for specific, measurable, action-oriented, realistic, and time-bound. And that's a great guide to make sure that the goals are realistic and something that we can specific enough to accomplish. So the next one is the city of Staunton. This was adopted in 2019. It's 336 pages. So it's the longest comp plan of the four. Again, this is an originally adopted plan. There have not been any updates to it as of yet. All goals and objectives and strategies are compiled into one chapter and then divided by category for easy reference. Currently, Rockbridge counties, we have the information of the chapter, and then at the end of the chapter, we have the goals. So if you're looking for them, you have to flip through each chapter. So it does give a really easy way to reference the goals. It lists the history of the city in a timeline format that's concise and easy to read. It includes the business incentives that are available within the city to encourage growth in the area. Most of the chapters begin with a summary of trend section, which highlights the key points of that category, which gives a really good Cliff Notes version of the chapter, if you will. It uses a high number of visuals throughout the plan, including graphs, charts, pictures of key locations, maps, etc. And then it creates capital improvement plans to prepare for continued growth in the area. Then the city of Harrisonburg. Obviously, they have a much higher population than what we're looking at, and a higher density of population. But again, this is just to gather ideas. So Harrisonburg adopted it in 2018. It was updated just this year in 2022. It is 263 pages. The comp plan introduction includes a handy explanation of how to understand the elements within the map. It breaks it down into really a pyramid, starting with the vision statement, which is why we do this. Underneath that is goals, which is what we want. Objectives is how we might achieve it, and strategies are the specific actions that will be taken to achieve those goals. Each goal, objective, and strategy is labeled with an item number for easy reference. It includes an arts, culture, and historic resources chapter that highlights important resources in the community, which could act similar to an area guide, especially if someone is new to the area and they're looking for those resources. And then a full chapter is dedicated to community engagement and collaboration, which stresses the importance that this document is not just for government officials, it requires collaboration from citizens in order to create and implement. They also use projects. They break down the implementation of the goals into projects, programs, and regulations. Projects are single event efforts with a clear beginning and end. Programs and policies are ongoing implementation efforts. And then regulations are adopted ordinances or other regulations that prohibit a matter or an action. And then finally, I think this one is really the most applicable to Rockbridge County. This is Augusta County's comp plan. They adopted it in 2007 and then updated it in 2015. The update is separate from the original plan, so it is only 107 pages. So this is the shortest of the four, but it is specifically an update, not the full plan. It provides a great explanation of the purpose of the comprehensive plan, how it's used, and the necessity to update it on a constant basis. It provides updated demographic information and then reflects current growth trends, as well as a brief update for each area of the comp plan section. All the goals are listed in a single chapter divided by topic for easy navigation. It includes an implementation strategy that breaks down each goal into individual tasks, and then it goes even a step further and assigns them to their responsible parties. And then it develops a review plan to monitor and monitor the progress of each goal and ensure that each goal is completed. So I hope that that roundup of information helped. I know that that was a lot of, each comp plan is long and that's a lot of information to digest. But does anyone have any questions that Chris or I might be able to answer on?
I have. First question is, so are we looking to do an update to our comp plan? Are we going to do, I mean, is it basically just an addendum to the comp plan with updates on demographics and that, or are we looking to redo it?
So we're looking to do an update. We're not necessarily looking to redo it. Our current one was adopted in 2016 and it's valid through 2036. So we're just doing an update, and that update, what we as community development and you guys as the planning commission are committing to do is just to look over this information, figure out what needs to be updated, obviously the demographic information, but then also making sure that the goals are still relevant and applicable to the
It's going to be more like the Augusta County, where it's just an update separate from the original adopted plan. It's just a supplement to that original plan.
Correct. I think that Augusta is probably out of the four that I looked at and that you guys have looked at, I think that's the most relevant to what we're hoping to accomplish.
My other question has to do with the census. Is that where we get, I mean, I don't feel like the census was very accurate this year
Yeah, so
because of, especially in our area, because we have such transient population when school's in or out or whatever. So I'm just wondering if we're going to depend on that a lot or.
So that is normally what we would depend on, but because this year it's so widely known that it's skewed because of COVID and because we're such a college area, if a college, my understanding is if a college student was, say, at home during COVID, then they weren't counted, even though maybe now they're back in school or
Right.
something like that.
It was definitely a problem with COVID. We recently, we had a Central Shenandoah Planning Commission meeting, and a gentleman from the Weldon Cooper Center, I can't remember his name. He was actually from Rockbridge County, but born in Rockbridge County, stayed here till high school and went away. But with that being said, he was utilizing or using the Harrisonburg example, and JMU student. Of course, Harrisonburg, I think, is 55,000 people, 22,000 JMU students, whatever it is, those ballpark figures. And they actually got that, they being the US Census, got the back of the information and then essentially had to go back to the drawing board because it was such a decrease in population. So in that particular case, they actually worked with the schools of mission officers and made some modifications and some assumptions, that type of thing, which is definitely not the norm in the past. And we really haven't studied Lexington's population. Obviously, is going to have more influence on VMI and Washington and Lee and where those students.
Well, then they were coming to us asking us, well, if they have a lease, we're going to count them as being here, but they were also getting counted in the town where they were, where they actually came from.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of double counting, I think. But they're, asking us a lot of questions about, well, if they have a lease, we're going to say they're here.
The Central Shenandoah Planning District is also working with us, or working with the localities, I should say, for a housing study. And I think that may have some, I won't say better numbers, but some additional numbers that could be considered as well.
I just wondered where we pulled that information.
Usually
from. I mean,
not,
certainly I don't
every
think we
other
can
year in the last 200 years, 100 years, however long we've been doing comp plan, 50 years, let's say, it's been the US Census, and there's been no questions on the numbers. Well, obviously there's a lot of questions, a lot of knowns that are skewed in this case. So it'll be interesting to see what other localities are doing and essentially what we end up doing, where we get the numbers from.
And what's the alternative?
There's really not. I mean, the CSPDC housing study may have shed some light on some population growth trends and, population trends, if you will. But other than that, there's not many additional resources for, counting populations.
Well, I was also thinking about with schools, I mean, the kids aren't all in school. Some kids are getting homeschooled. Some school are going to all these schools all over, where are those kids getting counted, because we certainly could look at enrollment statistics for the public schools around, but that's not going to give us a full picture either.
That's true. Yes. It's good to consider.
Okay.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Do we have anything else, Mr. Slade?
No, again, on the comp plan, just, David got his hard copy last couple of weeks ago. If anybody else wants a hard copy, Mr. Kramer has one. If anybody wants a hard copy of the current one, just let us know. We'll get it for you. It's of course available online, and we send a link out at the beginning of the process. Essentially, what we're going to do is continue working on it and continue having it on the agenda as an update to the comprehensive plan, knowing it just keeps the train moving, if you will.
And so when do you project that we'll start having any kind of public input meetings, things like that?
Sometime in 2023. That's not a very good answer for you, but I mean, our goal is to adopt
I
it in
mean, we're at the
2023.
end of 22,
obviously,
believe
so
it or not.
Yeah, oh, yeah, no,
So, I
we're-
mean,
we're
we're
here,
60 days
so-
from the end.
I don't have a great answer on that. It's just essentially workflow time allowing type thing. I'm very
But do we
appreciative.
have a goal set for we're going to have this done and ready by December of 23 or?
Vivica and I actually talked about that as far as we could present a draft schedule to y'all. We talked about that today as far as, again, how to keep this moving, how to keep it on track. And what Brandy Flint was telling us today was that the planning commission, we could do it by chapter, you know, it's the only way you can do it essentially. I mean, you have to have a stopping point. And so we could present a draft schedule for y'all's consideration next month. That highlights some of the
Right, because some of
goals.
those things, I mean, the history is not going to change. The topography is not really going to change. I mean, there are things that are going to change, but I mean, we don't have to look at every single chapter.
Yes, absolutely. And I did not ever realize that I was very limited in the input with the last comprehensive plan update. The heavy lifting was certainly done by Sam Krickenberger and Brandy Flint in conjunction with the Central Shenandoah Planning District Commission. With that being said, I was unaware of the shortened version, like Augusta's example, a true update. And it essentially serves as an addendum.
Mhm.
And I haven't looked at it for quite some time. I could be incorrect here, but y'all are required to review the comprehensive plan every 5 years. And that obviously includes some sort of update.
Mhm.
So do the surrounding counties, do most of them use a consultant or are they trying to do it by staff?
I'm uncertain. We haven't gotten that far, so I don't know. I'm confident that it's we utilized the Central Shenandoah Planning District Commission. It was shortly before last month or shortly after last month's Planning Commission meeting. We had a Zoom meeting with a representative from CSPDC, and I know they have multiple localities that have reached out to them for assistance in the comprehensive plan update. So I don't think it's uncommon trend across Commonwealth. For example, Central Shenandoah involves Augusta, Augusta County, Rockingham County, Bath, Highland, and Rockbridge, I believe, are the 5, and the independent towns and cities, in those localities. And of those, they had a fairly long list of people that reached out to them already. And so it's nominal, fairly few localities in the CSBDC. So I assume that's a trend across the state, that the PDC provides some assistance on that. And it's also not uncommon for consultants, to utilize that too, with some of the heavier lifting done in-house as well, depending on staff level.
Okay. So do we have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion.
We have a motion to adjourn and a second, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank y'all.
Very good. Thank you.
Swami, could you pencil in 300 right there? Just 3. I've not had that. I'll send you a receipt.
Sorry.
No, that's
I
okay.
totally forgot.
I mean, and here, like up there. I mean, that doesn't make a big-
Yeah, that's
But
fine.
when you look at how
We got one
small it
store
is,
at
that makes a big impact.
No, that's
Look at
okay.
the
I'll give you an
percentage,
email
it could
copy
be a
receipt.
big impact.
So they made a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors. The Board of Supervisors will be on October 24th at 6, at or after 6. So the meeting
I just
starts at
don't have no
5:30,
confidence
but
that
the
if
public
they
hearings
don't
are at or after 6 in the same room, same exact room. And so I'll let you know. Same presentation. Yeah, same presentation. Yeah, no, it really is. And it's, I think it went well. I'm anticipating the same. Okay, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. It'll be 20 years in January 1st. Yeah. Thank you all very much. Nice meeting you and look forward to continue the process.
All right. Thank
Yep.
you.
Oh, good job.
See how you get out.